we are doing everything we can to change the industry from a very big, cold type building to a very cozy home that has 10 to 20 per home. However, that doesn't tell you that all of us aren't going to have 100, 200, 500, 2,000 homes that add up to a huge count. We're just doing it because I feel that how you offer care has to be the top thing. And I feel like these 100 to 200 bed buildings aren't really built for great care. They're built for the owners to earn tons of money.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Man, today we're syndicating a different asset class and business model than I think we've talked about before. Our guest, and he's come up with a different model, and it's specifically around senior living. And I like this model because I have some seniors in my family. My grandparents are still alive. And so this is, real for me. I can think through this. And as we have tried to care for them and determine what is best for them. But our guest today is Brandon Schwab. He's a vision to improve the senior living industry forever. And he's really disrupting this asset class. And with his vision of how to do this and how to create a better space for our seniors, he's syndicating this, and he's providing great care for elderly. And so he's passionate about this. I love the business model. And I know you're going to learn a lot, though, whether you are wanting to syndicate senior living or not, whether you're syndicating another asset class or even looking to invest in a different type of asset class. Potentially you're wanting to diversify into something like senior living. You're going to learn a lot today from Brandon. Brandon, welcome to this show. I was honored to meet you at a conference that we were both at not too long ago. I knew you'd be a great guest on the show as soon as I met you. And I loved that you had a different outlook on this business model that you are in. And I don't think we've probably talked about this on the show before. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. Welcome.
All right, bud. Perfect. Thank you.
Brandon, tell us a little bit about, your business model, who you are, and maybe why this asset class as well, why you pursued this asset class after you tell us how you got there.
Well, I opened up our first company when I was about 15 years old. I was doing cars and also RVs. I cleaned them for about 14 years. And then I quickly figured out at the end of it, after 2008 crash, that if you don't own anything that is going to own any assets, you don't own anything, right? So I quickly found out the hard way that I thought I owned something, but at the end of the day, I didn't own anything. So I got investing into assets in 2010. I began wholesaling the first couple of years. And then from 2010 through 12, I wholesaled. And then 12 through 14, I figured out quickly that I needed income coming in, that I didn't have to constantly always take care of things, right? So from 12 to 14, I built passive income of $5,400 each month. And then I got exposed to a concept down in Florida of how they care for the elderly. It was totally the opposite of everything I've been able to get exposed to beforehand. Back beforehand, I was exposed to all the huge 100 to 200 type places for the elderly that typically are going to have an odor inside. I hated the atmosphere. Our family member had a experience there that was pretty bad, actually, and he didn't get awesome care, and I just hated the overall atmosphere. Mm-hmm. But then down in Florida, I got exposed to it that was totally different. But that's kind of how I got into this today. It was that I discovered there was a need and it wasn't being properly taken care of. I don't feel that our country takes care of the elderly as good as they ought to. I feel actually how they do is actually, it is terrible. And I feel that it could be done drastically different. And then as I got exposed to how it could be done totally different, I felt that I had to go after that and take care of it. So fast forward today, I've got 5 homes up and operating that are between 10 beds and about 20 beds per home, caring for the elderly. I've got 2 opening in Q3 2022, and I've got 7.2 acres of land to that I can put 6 homes on.
Awesome. So you learned about, or actually, I want to even back up a little bit. Yeah, 2008 happened. You were already an entrepreneur, but you learned that, hey, if you don't own any assets, you almost own nothing, right? So, yeah, if we could all just learn that early on. When they teach me that in high school, but they didn't. So, but you started wholesaling, and then you quickly figured out, hey, I need some passive income, right? It just seems like so many of us go through that transition, right? But you were even successful there in building that passive income. You said, I think over $5,000 a month, which is great. But I loved how you were exposed to this asset class. You obviously had you cared for the elderly, like you wanted to see something done differently. Unfortunately, your family member was receiving care and it was very poor. And so, I think it's so neat how, as entrepreneurs, oftentimes, a business is created because we see an opportunity, right? We see something that we want changed, and you did that, and you're doing that. And so share a little bit about your business model. I noticed, like you said, this many homes, or you have 10 beds in this home. Oftentimes when I think of senior living, or we've talked about it on the show, it's, we're buying, like, it looks like a complex, right? Or an old hotel, or, it's something like that. It's like, it's built that way, like an apartment community. And that's what I think of when I think of senior living. But you talked about, this home model with so many beds in a home. What does that mean? Talk about the differences there, maybe why, you're going that route.
A big portion of the people that are older that I take care of, they have been in their own home for 40, 50, 80 years, right? Whoever's thought at the end of that they ought to go to like this huge, cold 100 to 200 type building. Chances are it probably isn't going to be them. If they are asked, they would prefer to be into a home that is going to be a cozy home that has an atmosphere that is warm, and it doesn't have tons of people, but it has enough people to keep them active, right? So the experience that I had was two of the total opposites. I have been in the 100 to 200 that has the odor inside. It has the atmosphere where everyone's asking you for help, because I found out that the average caregiver there has to care for 20 to 30 people. And I said, no, that's terrible. But then I also got exposed to the opposite of it, where they had a 5-person house. And I said, a 5-person house is cool if you are the owner operator, like in there doing everything, but like that isn't really a duplicatable company, because you don't have the income to pay for anyone else to actually operate. So I have been in each of them, and I said, how about if we do something that's kind of different? How about if we do something that's like 10 to 20 people per home, but don't ever go over that, right? Just always keep it cozy and keep it where they feel that they are at home. And I feel that that's key. And I feel that post-COVID, COVID has actually changed the industry of how people think of it, right? Over the past couple of years, you have heard of people in the 100 to 200 type places that really didn't get very good care. And I think COVID's going to be the factor that's going to change how people think of it. And after COVID, they expect a higher quality of care, and the 100 to 200 type places just isn't it. So we are doing everything we can to change the industry from a very big, cold type building to a very cozy home that has 10 to 20 per home. However, that doesn't tell you that all of us aren't going to have 100, 200, 500, 2,000 homes that add up to a huge count. We're just doing it because I feel that how you offer care has to be the top thing. And I feel like these 100 to 200 bed buildings aren't really built for great care. They're built for the owners to earn tons of money.
I like how you said, keep it where they feel like they're at home, right? And I have a grandfather who's 101 and grandmother that's 94. Wow. They still live at home, believe it or not. He's a World War II veteran. I mean, just they've been blessed with amazing health. But man, this last year or two, it's really declined quite a bit, unfortunately. But we've been struggling with that, and really they live in a part of the country where it's like it's a one stoplight town. There's almost nothing there, so it's hard to find right. care for them. And so it's interesting to think about this model where, in that community, it's hard to see, building a big senior living facility, right? But no doubt, if you had a home like you're talking about, there's plenty of people, seniors there that need that type of care as well, So I could even see in different markets where, this model would work, where the other model may not, as well in a market like that. Have you seen things like that?
Well, I could tell you our very first home, I bought a house that was 4,880 feet on the very first floor, right? And it was on 3 acres, but it was in a town of 832 people. Now, if you think of that, so like you'd go, wow, that's a terrible place to open. But I filled it and I kept it full at 98% occupancy for over 4 years. 4 years. So this concept is able to operate in all areas, and it probably operates easier in towns where there isn't tons of people. I mean, under 25,000, perfect for us.
Let's talk about staffing something like that. How do you, and I know that, the operations component of this business model or senior living in general is more operations heavy than most, right? But that's also, I think, where like the cream rises to the top, right? I mean, that,
right.
I mean, if I'm talking about my grandparents or my parents eventually, I'm going to come there and I'm going to want to meet the caregivers, right? And I'm going to talk to the other families and all those things, right? And so it's going to quickly show, man, is this a place that feels like home, like you said, for my family members, or not, right? So speak to, if you got 10 to 20 beds in a home, how many caregivers is required for that home? And how do you find those people, especially in a community of 800 and some people? How do you do that?
Yes. So before COVID, I had a caregiver to every 5 in all of our homes, right? After COVID, I had a caregiver to every 5 to 8 people. Our aim is to have a caregiver to every 5 people because you can offer awesome care that if you don't offer that, they don't have any clue. They don't have time to offer that type of care if you have to care for 20, 30 people. I built a home atmosphere that also has awesome care on the inside because our aim is to create a company culture of a very cozy home atmosphere that everyone feels close to each other. And that has come at personal cost to us, but I felt like that's how it ought to be done. We can figure out how to operate everything else after that. But that was a thing that our company did not ever give up. And for a 10-person house, we've got 2 people on from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. And then in the evening time, I've got like 1 person in the evening time, but I also have an RN that comes into each house every day for about 3 hours per day. And then I have a MD that comes each week. So I'm offering the type of care that people are looking for in a home, that they don't have to take their family out anywhere because it's all able to come to them.
Are you about to start a podcast or producing a podcast and tired of doing the editing yourself? We have produced over 1,000 daily shows, and the production team that I've created, they're now available to produce shows for you as well. We can do as little or as much as you need, from finding and communicating with guests, preparing introductions, to editing the audio and video. You will sound better, have a more professional presence, and be able to spend your time doing other valuable tasks on your business. Let me know you're interested by emailing me directly at whitney@lifebridgecapital.com.
Yeah, love that. I love the, how you're striving to keep it like 5 to 1 as well. And I just think about the relationships that are built there.
That's the point. Mm-hmm.
And we all talk about how this is such a relationship business. And I think yours has a whole nother component to that. We talk about, personally, like obviously building our business brand. It's in so much relationships, people I've met, people I've stayed in touch with over a number of years now. Right. And we've help each other in many ways, but man, you're helping culture, not only relationships that you have, in your business and operations, but also you're helping cultivate relationships, for these elderly, people who, man, that's it's like the most important thing to them at this point in their life, right? I mean, it's like if they don't have those relationships, they couldn't care less about probably being there, right? And so it's neat how you're working through that. Talked about the culture that, how you're doing that, how you're creating that company culture there. And so you're almost cultivating the family atmosphere, the relationships, even amongst your team members as well.
Sure. So a thing that, as you are able to come to all of our homes, all of us eat. Every house has their own table that's between about just 16 feet and 22 feet each. The whole point is everyone eats here. And that's easier than I've been to places before that they've got table, and everyone doesn't talk to each other. And that creates issues where for us, it's about the atmosphere, because all these people that are in our homes, when they were 5-10 years old, they all ate at that home table. And I try to do all of that going forward. As far as our care team has it where they don't have to care for 10, 15, 20, 30 plus people, that they have the time to create that close connection to everyone in each house. We try to create it where they feel like they're taking care of their own, right? We want that own family in there. And each house has like one person in charge of the house. And our turnover in our company has actually been the top in the whole industry, because people, as they are able to come here, they feel like they are part of it. They feel that they are part of our overall atmosphere, and they don't go elsewhere, even if they are offered extra money, because they feel like they're taking care of their own. So that's the atmosphere that I feel is key, that as you can offer that isn't found elsewhere today. I think you'll find elsewhere that there's a very big push towards earnings, and how they hit their earning figures is they cut expenses. Their biggest expense is what? Care, right? And when they cut the care, then they don't have enough people. That turns into the odor. The odor is because they can't get people changed. It's terrible.
Yeah, snowball effect, right? And it's right. And it's thinking very short term, right, instead of long term. And so, I think that's wise and a great reminder to all of us. I mean, no matter what business almost we're in, we're always tempted to think that way, right? So, speak to this model and syndicating. Like, I know you have a fund. You're syndicating these now, and maybe like, what does that look like to syndicate, say, a senior living home like this that you're creating, and maybe some like costs per, how do you do that? Like cost per bed, cost per room. How do you think about some of that how this works? To speak through maybe the model of syndicating a business like this.
Yeah. So how I've done it beforehand is I have come up with a home. I added up everything that I had to do to this home, purchase it, everything. And then I came up with a interesting option that did both an upfront pref coupled also with a piece of equity. I did that because it gave people ups on each side where they got part of that. And I had very good IRRs that it was over the average. And doing that for our first houses is how I got to this point. Between all those, I think we brought in about $14.2 million total. And that helped us get to this point, because if I didn't have the opportunity to have other investors come in, we wouldn't have been able to open these homes. Because when I was trying to open this concept, there was no one. I went to local people in the area, and they wouldn't give us financing because they were like, whoa, you have a 10-person house and every person brings in $5,000 per month. Like, they couldn't handle it. Their head exploded. And these guys are like, why don't you come back to me after you open up your first home or home two? And I was able to do that. And every time they just couldn't handle it. So there is a good place for folks that have funds to invest, because if it isn't for you guys, these things don't happen. The industry isn't able to change. And that's kind of how we were able to get going. I mean, fast forward to today, our fund has 3 different options, and it is basically catered to what people are asking for. And I find that that's how we have to do each of these funds and each offering, because each house is totally on its own. A thing that I found challenging is once we got a home open and do takeout financing, typically about 3 years to about 5 years, then I had to give everything and then just do the whole thing over. I finally changed to a fund concept as we are giving capital back from our first 14.2 million. And I was looking for just something that was easier for kind of everyone, that they could park capital in and just kind of have it operate, right?
Awesome. It's great. I mean, because a lot of us understand maybe syndicating a little bit, but we haven't thought about this asset class. And so it's just a different business model than most of us have thought through, but could potentially be something that we could do locally, or and provide amazing care for, family members and other people in the community. So Brandon, what, in this type of business model, what do you see as the biggest risk? Or, when a 2008 happens or something like that, how does that affect this type of structure or business model in senior living?
Well, I can tell you in 2008 happened. This was the top performing asset class. And it is funny because everyone here today kind of thinks about all these other asset classes that everyone talk on that are very competitive, right? Our asset class isn't a very popular one that people talk on, but it outperforms all the other ones. This was the top performing commercial asset class after the 2008 crash. It's brought back investors over a 10-year average over 14%. So that's pretty good. But I think the issue is that people think of it as these huge 100 to 200 type buildings. They think that you have to have like huge capital to put anything here, right? It's different now. Things have been able to change. The industry is changing post-COVID, where I think that folks are asking others to take care of the elderly totally different. And that's creating opportunities that I think people ought to definitely consider. I feel like when you're taking care of the elderly that have older capital anyways, you are not dependent upon everything going on. I mean, particularly with today with inflation of being 8.5%, like that's forcing people who are going to invest that they have to find places to invest it, because if you don't, it's just going down, down, down. Where this is an asset class that if you're going to invest, find an actual asset back behind it, a tangible asset that is back behind that. That's always going to actually have, if you have that asset back behind there, it's always going to able to hold its own, or it's going to keep on being able to go up. But I keep hearing guys that are parking capital elsewhere that are getting killed this week. Anyways, everything's going down, but it's like, I'm kind of like, we are doing fine, guys. Like there isn't anything that's able to happen over here. Like I don't feel like I'm hurting anyone else's feelings, but like our asset class is actually only going up, because if you look at the elderly count, there's 10,000 people every day that are turning of age every day that have to get care. And I feel for us that we are in a place to change the industry totally upside down.
Yeah. And I can see too, obviously, if your family members are needing care, I mean, you're going to do everything you can to make sure that happens, right? Even in the worst of times.
Yeah, totally.
All right, Brandon, a few final questions before we have to be done, unfortunately, but tell us, what's your best source for meeting new investors right now?
Being on here, able to talk to you. During COVID, you just couldn't go out as much anymore. Like all of that changed. So doing these type of calls are great. In fact, the time that I talked to you this last December, that was the first event that I was at to actually talk to anyone face to face. And that whole time I was just like, oh my God, this is great. But like, because COVID has changed things, it has changed how you can get to talk to people anymore. Right. I feel like this is an avenue that I can talk to you here, but then everyone else is able to hear this afterwards. That it is how I get to teach people first. I will only talk to people if I teach them something that they didn't hear prior, and they go, hey, Brandon, this is really cool, but I don't have the time or the effort to go do the thing that you did. So maybe I can just help you help others. Any person thinking of getting into this business, I would tell you don't, because this has been the hardest 8 years that I've had. But I felt that at the end of it, it is great because I've got 5 homes. If I didn't have 5 homes, I don't know if we would have got through COVID, just because I had houses they all actually were open prior. Today, I'm actually purchasing people that thought that they could do it. And I'm purchasing them for upfront cash and just closing quickly. And I'm getting a typical discount of 20 to 40%.
Wow.
So those are people that thought they could do it. And then COVID happened, and then boom, it changed the whole industry. For anyone that doesn't have this asset class in your current portfolio, so I would definitely find an avenue to get it in your portfolio, because it's a good asset class to have compared to others that are very competitive, and when things are very competitive, costs go up, right? And we want to help people kind of get out of that place where I feel that our asset class is how it's going to be going forward. And that's what I think is awesome on this.
Yeah. Brandon, tell us a couple or maybe a habit that you are disciplined about that has produced the highest returns for you.
Habit that I'm disciplined on. The top thing that I think I do better than anyone else that I've seen is I talk to quite a bit of people that when they are thinking on anything that is new, they just think and they think it and they overthink everything, right? Where to a point that they don't ever take action. So I've always found that when a thing is good, I will take action first and I'll kind of figure out how to do things afterwards. And that could be a good thing to hear, because there's a ton of people that overthink things and they don't ever do anything. I feel that that's been the top thing that I do that helps us is I just go and I get things figured out, and then things are able to happen.
Yeah, if you let fear set in, then man, it's hard to get past it. You commit quickly, then you have to do it, right? So that's awesome. That's a great reminder for all of us. What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Taking action, doing things that others aren't comfortable doing. I think the inner feeling that I can do things has pushed me beyond the upfront fear of the thought that you can't. I feel that has always helped me, is to just take action. But then also after you take action, so I feel like God's going to definitely test you, and he's going to test you to just see if you are going to follow through on it. And during all those times, you just can't quit either. There is also part of it where I cleaned cars and RVs for 14 years. 14 years doing that, that's a long time. But it taught me a ton. And I also got exposed to some really good people. But like fast forward to today, that's something that I will follow through on things. I don't quit. Even as things are hard, you just figure out how to do it. I feel like people quit too easy today.
No doubt about it. It reminds me of that book, and I may not get this exactly right, but the title of it's like 7 feet from gold or 10 feet from, I can't remember now, but the thought is, you gave up right before you hit the gold. It's like that happens, I feel like often. And it's a great reminder as well, man, you got to keep going. And so Brandon, how do you like to give back?
I just love to give back by teaching people that this asset class is out here. I often am teaching other people to potentially get into it, but I feel like if I can teach them that this asset class is out there and just totally open up to them, I feel like I can help people. How I would like to give back is I came up with an 85-page book that I was going to put up for sale. And I finally figured out, I don't feel like teaching people because that takes me away. So I give that to anybody that's interested in opening up their own home. And they tell me that they were able to hear it on here, that I will give that to them for free. And then I also am going to give time to anybody that's interested to talk with us to either help them and ask and help them answer anything that they have either on our asset class or how they could invest, or if they are interested to go through this 85-page book, I will talk to them afterwards. Once they go through this book 7 times, they have to go through it, because then they will be able to keep about 94% of the info up here. I will talk to them afterwards for up to 30 minutes. That time is the top thing that I could give anybody, because that is something that you don't have X of, like you. And that is a thing that I will offer for anyone that's able to get to this point. I think we're close to an hour in right now. So
awesome. Brandon, honored to have you on the show and to learn more about this asset class and even just your model, and I like it because even as I think about my family members, right? I think about, okay, would I want them in a large home, or would I want them in a small home, right? In this community that's being, able to be built and, because no doubt they want to feel like they're still at home, right? They love that atmosphere. That's what they know. So I love this business model, and your desire to help, the seniors who definitely need our help, no doubt about it. And so grateful to have you on the show. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you though, and learn more about you.
I think probably the easiest way. So we are going to be old fashioned, where if you just call our office to talk with us, that's probably the easiest. Our office phone number is 847-860-6432. That's the office. And then the other office line is 847-380-8624. Call either of those, ask to talk to us. I have an awesome EA who is able to answer the upfront call, and then she is able to help getting everything taken care of.
Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. We want to help you become the passive investor you've always wanted to become, but also the operator you've always wanted to become. We want to be the number one resource for your real estate investing journey. But go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can start investing in real estate today.